Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Minister, very welcome to the Seanad. And can I acknowledge and thank you for the determined and skillful and really committed approach you've taken right through this process, both to the achieving of solidarity with Ireland as Brexit was unfolding, right through to the negotiation of the protocol, and the avoidance of a hard border, and right up to the present day. That committed, skillful approach is so appreciated by the people of the country and was so necessary in the context. I can only, in the time allowed, do a little survey of some of the main points that occur to me and that I'd like you to respond to, maybe, Minister, in some instances, and just to make them in others. First of all, on the protocol, I'm encouraged by what you say, that there is and that your approach is to make the protocol work in a sensible, pragmatic way and to achieve an east-west solution there. And I suppose that was my view in the notes I prepared. I was going to make the point that I thought in the outworking of the protocol we should be reasonable, we should achieve consensus, and we should be there to do that. That's not to say that we're not correct in objecting to the breach of an international agreement when that occurs, but I do think a pragmatic approach is required to it, and I think that's what you're doing, and I would commend that to continue. I want to raise another issue now, and that's an issue indeed that's often raised by our colleague who will speak later here, Senator O'Donnell, but I want to personally raise it as well, is the need for the recognition of mutual professional qualifications from east-west, across from the UK to here. And I gather that an initiative of the two governments, Minister, could greatly accelerate that process, and that I would commend to you that you would begin negotiations that might achieve that at that level, although I know the professional bodies, and about 10 of them have done it already, but a number of the professional bodies are working through this themselves. But I think an intergovernmental approach would be very helpful here. I think you did cite this yourself, Minister, and needless to say, but I think our relationship with the UK is of extraordinary importance. Now, we must continue the bonds of kinship and friendship and the cultural exchange and the interrelationships are there, but also the trading relationship both ways is crucially important. I think I'm actually proud that I'm a member of the one body, international body, where the UK is also a member and where we can interact with them, and that's the Council of Europe. But interaction and friendship, and of course the British-Irish Parliamentary provides such a similar opportunity, so that type of interaction remains important, and the trading relationship remains important. There's an issue that's been raised with the Brexit Committee, Minister, and I'd just like to, if I could maybe read a little of this paragraph here on this, this is a report from ISME. Revenue is debiting VAT and duties due by the importer 30 minutes before port arrival. In cases where the importer has multiple inbound shipments, revenue may make a deduction, which means the importer has insufficient funds to clear a shipment which is 30 minutes from port. The importer can transfer funds during working hours via ROS. But outside working hours, this can hold up the other shipments. Revenue's offered solution to this is not working yet. And I do take your point and agree with you, and had it in my notes also, Minister, that the Revenue have done a great job here and are very committed to getting easy solutions. But I'd ask you, Minister, if that question could be visited. That's a submission from ISME where there is a problem with the payment thing, and particularly out of hours. So that's basically that one. So there are some outstanding issues there with clearance. The TCA, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, is working well and needs, as you said, to be built on and made to work in a very practical sense. I'd just like to raise another issue, Minister. It's the question of mutual recognition of EU and UK data protection. That agreement, that it lasts now till July 2021, the mutual recognition is there until then. But then after that, there could be a lot of difficulties on borders, on east-west. And I'd ask you, Minister, maybe at a bilateral level, intergovernmentally, that could be resolved, because we were all part of the one data protection area earlier when we were all in the EU, so it shouldn't be that difficult to continue a working arrangement there. It's worth noting that we had a growth in trade with Northern Ireland, which is a great byproduct in the first quarter of the year, and it went from imports from Northern Ireland went from 137 to 177 million, and exports from 170 to 190. That trading relationship is very, very important. It's so important, as you said earlier yourself, Minister, that we keep the North-South relationship strong, the trading relationship strong, and of course protect the Good Friday Agreement. An issue that's arising, Minister, at the Brexit Committee, and I'd like you to take on board, please, as well, is the potential price increase in bread, which can hit the poorest of our community most, but hits everybody. That be because the flour, the milled product for the bread is being imported from outside. We don't have the milling capacity in Ireland of flour, and it's an issue. The price of bread is potentially an issue. And Minister, it would be important if this could be addressed on two fronts. A, that we would domestically mill flour more, and B, that we get some sort of an international agreement to get over it. Now the question arises, and it did arise there recently on the Claire Byrne show, of the reunification of the country. And I remember doing a school debate as a youngster and winning the debate on the basis that I said then, what you need is a reunification of hearts and minds, and not just territory and fields. So I do think, Minister, that we should be looking at the reunification question, how we can establish areas of cooperation. One simple thing I've always suggested, Minister, and I think it's not your direct area of responsibility, but I would appreciate you considering bringing it to Cabinet, that we should make it a condition of sports capital grants and all sorts of grants that we have, that there's a north-south dimension, that a club that would get a sports capital grants here would interact with a club in the north once or twice a year even. It doesn't have to be huge, but enough to establish a normal relationships north-south and south-north, obviously. Just to say, on very little time, but the farmers, beef in Ireland, a beef animal in Ireland is getting €300 less than the equivalent in the UK. There's a kind of a nationalism now in the UK, I gather, with the eating of their own beef. And it's a concern, and in the context of Brexit solidarity funding, etc., our beef farmers will need support, as indeed our dairy farmers will also need protection to ensure that later on they don't suffer. And that's an important in that context. That it is important that we would protect our farmers in the context. I would like you to comment, if you didn't mind, Minister, in your reply, on the prospect of solidarity funding and supports from Europe that we could use to deal with vulnerable sectors, even something like the milling sector and flour and all of these, so that we could in some way compensate. So thank you very much, Cathaoirleach and Minister, for your presence. Thank you.